Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. I'm going to go through another script so that you can have a look about how we can use those SQL commands learned about in week 5. So the inserts, deletes, and updates. We are once again in the Beaver here. We are connected to our database. And as you can see, we start with an empty DB. There are no tables in here. So the very first thing we do is just to enable the checks on the foreign keys as we did the other time. So let's start with doing this. We highlight and we run this query. So now the checks on the foreign keys are enabled. In case you still have some tables, then you first need to drop them. You can use these instructions here to drop the tables if they exist. So if I run this and the table is not existing, I will not get any error. You see there are no errors here. I can run this one too. Of course, this is now not needed because we do not have the tables. If you had them, then you could just do this. And then we are just going to create the same tables we had the other time. So let me just copy paste them here. You have one table for the reader, one table for the genre, and one table for the books. This is again a problem with the UI, so you shouldn't worry about it. It's actually working fine. So let me just this time run the whole script. So the whole script will just repeat this instruction. It doesn't really matter. It will not drop any table because they don't exist. And then it will create these 3 tables. So I just run the whole script. It's done. And if I refresh here the tables now, here they are. So let's start with some inserts. These ones, we have already seen them the other time. So we can just insert with this instruction one record in the reader table with the email, which is also the primary key, and the first name, middle name, last name, gender, date of birth, and all the other information. And this will just go through fine. This is one insert record. We can insert another one, of course. Let's put another one here. Let's run this one too. And since we are on it, we are just going to insert also some let's just first do this. Let's just make, just like we did the other time, an example of something that cannot be inserted. This will give an error. If you remember, it will give an error because we are trying to insert a second record with the same primary key. So it cannot work. If I try, I get an error here saying that the primary key constraint is violated. So it cannot do this. So all these are things that we have seen the other time. So I'm going a little bit fast on this. We also can insert a gender. Or actually, we are inserting 1, 2, 3, 4 gender in one instruction only here. And then we insert a couple of books. And all of these things we have already seen with the previous exercise. So here we are inserting this book, ISBN 1, ISBN 2. And the last thing that we already did was to see that we cannot insert a book with a null value for gender. And this is not because of the foreign key constraint. The foreign key would allow for null values, but we have explicitly said here that gender cannot be null in a book. So if you try to do this, you're going to get an error for a violation of a not null constraint. Okay, so far so good. We have already seen these things in the previous exercise. Just let's have a look at which books we have, which have as a genre novel. If I run this one, it's only one book with genre novel. Now, let's imagine that we want to build another table which only contains books of genre novel. So let me just very quickly create a new table. So this new table here will be a table with only novel books inside. So it has the same structure as the other one, but it has a different name. So I'm creating this one. You can see here if I refresh, and now I have this new table here. Now let me also insert now the books from the LTS book table into this one. So I want to show you a different way of inserting data into a table. Just to do that though, let's first add another book with the same gender. So you see now we have only one. Let me just insert another book of type novel. So we have at least 2 that we copy. So let me just insert this one. We call it ISBN 3. We have a title 3. Suppose it was from 1985. and it's again of type novel. So I'm inserting this. So you see now if I look for books with novel genre, I actually have 2. Okay, so what we can see now is a different way of inserting data in this table this time. Okay, and we use this way of doing things. So we are saying insert data into this new table. These are the columns that we're interested in, but the data that you want to insert comes from the result set of a select. So the system here is running this select, getting all the books from the book table with genre novel. So we know we're going to get these 2. And it will insert them into this new table here. So let's select both lines because this is one command and run it. All good. And now if you check what's inside this new table, you will see that it contains those 2 books and only those which are novel. Remember that in the book table, let me see if I have it here, otherwise we can let's just do it here. If I look at what I have in the book table, so let's start from LTS books. I actually have 3. I have a horror book as well. But in this one, we only picked up the ones with genre novel and we store them into this table as well. So this is the second way of inserting data that you've seen in this week's lesson. Okay. Now I also want to show you an example of ingesting a bulk of data into our table. So how can we do that? Well, you could do it with commands, but I want to show you an easier way to do that. First, though, I need to show you where this data is and how it looks like. So let me show you. Let me open an Excel file for you. Actually, it's a CSV file, so I can actually open it in a new in a notepad. So let me just open this one. It's a different screen. I will show you now. So I'm now opening something like this. It is a CSV file, which has the titles of the columns, and then it has 3 books, 4, 5, and 6. So with this, I will upload this one on Moodle as well, by the way. So what I can do here, if I want to add them to the book table, I can go here and I can say import data. I right click on the LTS book and I say import data. I can do the same, of course, on this one. And because these are all novel books, and because I don't want to just mess up with this table, let me just do it here. So I right click here and I go with import data. I select the CSV file and I click next. Then I need to pick it up. It's this one. So I select my local file. I go next. You see here there is a mapping, but the mapping is already fine as it is because it has understood that the first row represents the name of the columns and it finds the name of the columns in the table. So there is an existing mapping. I can just proceed. You don't need to change anything here. Next, and proceed. If I do this, those additional 3 books that you have here have now been added to that table. So if I go back, you see that it opened a new script here. You can actually close this. It's just a summary of what happened. If you go back to the original script, and if you look now what's inside this table, you see now we have also 4, 5, and 6. So this is a way to ingest bulk data. If you have a very big CSV file with a lot of data, you can just import it doing this. And it's a very convenient way of doing it. The last things we need to look at are the delete and update operations. So let's start with something simple. Let's do something like this. This will go into the LTS novel books table and will delete the row which has title 4. Let's see if it works. All fine. Let's select from that again. And indeed now number 4 is gone. If you want to remove all of these at once, then you can just do this. If you don't put any, sorry, I took the wrong one, this one. This is just to show you this one. So delete from without any where condition will just delete all the rows which are in there. And the system will actually warn you about it. So if you try to run it, it will tell you, are you sure you want to delete everything? you say yes. And if you try to look inside this table again, let me just take it one more time. Now it's empty as expected. Very good. We can actually drop the table if we want. We don't really need it anymore. So let's drop this one. So if I refresh this, that table is gone. Okay, we just need it for these inserts and deletes. Now I want to show you something else. Let's try to delete the genre novel. So before we run this, remember that in the genre table, we have it here. Otherwise, I will just write it again. Let's just write it here. So if you look at select start from FTS genre, you have these 4 different genres. And I'm trying to delete the novel one. You get an error. And you get an error because you have records in the book table that are pointing to this genre. If you remember in the book table, let's go finding the cell for the book, this one. You have at least 2 records which point to the genre table with a foreign key novel. So I cannot remove it. The system prevents me to do that because that would bring a violation in the foreign key constraint. So how can I do that? Well, we'll see it in a second. We're going to get the same error even if we try to update this value. So if I want to change this one, if I want to change this and call it, let's say, novel 2, I would use the update command, update the table genre novel 2 where it's novel. And again, this will result in an error because there are records that are pointing to the genre novel. So I cannot delete it and I cannot change it. This is very important for you to keep in mind. Now, if I wanted to be able to do this, I would have to create the book table in a different way. So let me just, for a sec, drop the book table and recreate it. So now you see it's gone, right? It's no longer there. And now let me recreate it. But this time we create it with these different conditions here, these different clauses. So we are saying that genre is a foreign key, but when the foreign key in the refer table is deleted, then we want to cascade the deletion on this table. And when the foreign key value in the refer table is updated, we want to update the cascade in this table. So we are creating this table now. We are not running it. So the table is now there again. We can just put some data in again. So let me just take these instructions here. So that is 1. This is 2. So these are the books I have inside. I have a novel and an horror. And now let's try once again to update the values in the genre table. So I'm again trying to change novel into a different value in my genre table. This was failing before because there was a book pointing to novel. This time, however, it will not fail. And if I look now inside books, what has happened is that the update in the genre table has been cascaded into the book table. So this value has been updated, just like this one. So now if I look at this table, it's now called novel new. And in the book table, we now point to novel new. So this has now worked. And of course, we can also delete novel new. And if we delete novel new from the genre, the deletion is going to cascade on the book table. So in the book table now, that record is gone. Okay, guys, this is all I wanted to show you for inserts, updates, and deletes. Study the material, use the script, try the exercise yourself. And if you have any question, let me know. Bye-bye.